Are you tired? Tired of living under the crushing weight of expectations, of waking up every day with that feeling that no matter what you do, it will never be enough, of carrying the burden of an existence that seems more like an endless marathon than a celebration dance? If you're exhausted from this deadly seriousness, this constant tension that sucks all joy from your life, then Nietzsche has a powerful message for you. Those who take life too seriously are lost. The philosopher who challenged all Western thought realized something we still try to ignore today. Excessive seriousness isn't a virtue, it's a disease. It's a prison we build ourselves brick by brick, rule by rule, should by should, until we can no longer see the sky. Have you ever noticed how society teaches us from early on that seriousness is a supreme value, that to be respected you need to be serious, that to succeed you need to follow a linear, predetermined path: school, college, job, marriage, children, retirement, death. A serious, orderly sequence of events that we're led to believe constitutes a well-lived life. But what if all this is just a grand illusion? What if, as Nietzsche courageously suggested, we're trapped in values that weaken rather than strengthen us? Maturity means having rediscovered the seriousness one had as a child at play. Nietzsche wrote this because he understood something profoundly transformative. A child plays with total seriousness, absorbed in the moment, without thinking about purpose, meaning, utility. She is simply there, completely present, engaged in the experience of being alive. And then we grow up. We lose this capacity. We start to see life as a mission, a project, a task to be completed. We replace the joy of existence with the anxiety of achievement. The present moment is sacrificed on the altar of a future that never arrives. Do you realize how you walk through life carrying an invisible weight? How your mind is always evaluating, judging, comparing. Am I where I should be? Do I have what I should have? Am I who I should be? Questions too serious for a universe that, according to Nietzsche, is fundamentally chaotic, unpredictable, and above all, innocent as a playing child. This is the moment when Nietzsche enters the stage of philosophy like lightning, like an earthquake that destabilizes the foundations of everything we consider sacred. He looks at the Western tradition, at Socrates, Plato, Christianity, morality, and sees a long history of life denial, a tradition that has transformed existence into a problem to be solved, rather than an adventure to be lived. One must still have chaos in oneself to give birth to a dancing star. These words of Nietzsche are not just beautiful poetry. They are a declaration of war against the tyranny of excessive order, absolute reason, the deadly seriousness that kills the spirit. The chaos he mentions isn't destruction. It's the primordial energy of life, fluid, unpredictable, creative. It's that state of openness where the new can be born. But in our desperate search for control, for certainty, for security, we suffocate this chaos. We build systems, rules, routines, 5-year plans, career goals, investment strategies, all to protect ourselves from the vertigo of freedom, all to avoid confronting the truth that Nietzsche reveals to us. There is no ultimate meaning. There is no final purpose. There is no divine plan. And this isn't bad news. It's the best possible news, because it means we are free to create, free to play, free to dance our own dance, sing our own song, live our own life without the need to justify it before some cosmic tribunal. Are you feeling the weight being lifted from your shoulders as you absorb this truth? Are you beginning to realize how seriousness is ultimately a self-imposed prison? Nietzsche looked at modern man and saw a sick animal, sick not from some virus or bacteria but from himself, from his own limiting beliefs, from his own inability to affirm life in all its fullness. Man is something that shall be overcome, he proclaimed, and the overcoming begins exactly at the point where we abandon morbid seriousness and rediscover the joy of play. Have you noticed how the most serious people are often the most unhappy? How those who build their entire identity around fixed ideas, be it a career, a religion, a political ideology, seem to be constantly at war with reality? It's because deep down, they are trying to force life to fit their theories, instead of adapting their theories to life. Nietzsche understood this deeply. He saw how the Western philosophical tradition, with its search for truth with a capital T, was fundamentally an expression of fear of change, fear of uncertainty, fear of death. And this fear manifested as a paralyzing seriousness. It is not a lack of love, but a lack of friendship that makes unhappy marriages. This observation by Nietzsche reveals something profound about human nature. Friendship, unlike romantic love, has an element of play, of lightness. Friends laugh together, play together, enjoy each other's presence without the heavy burden of expectations that often accompanies romantic love. And, curiously, the most lasting and satisfying relationships are those that preserve this element of friendship, this ability not to take everything so seriously. Have you noticed how difficult it is to be truly present when we are trapped in seriousness? How our mind is always in the past, lamenting mistakes, or in the future anticipating problems. Seriousness robs us of the only moment when life really happens, now. Nietzsche offers us a radical alternative, Amor, Fati, the love of fate. It's not passive resignation, but an active affirmation of everything life brings, the good and the bad, joy and pain. My formula for greatness in a human being is Amor Fati, that one wants nothing to be different. Not forward, not backward, not in all eternity, not merely bear what is necessary, still less conceal it, but love it. Imagine living like this, without resistance to what is, without that constant struggle against reality that drains our energy and keeps us in a perpetual state of dissatisfaction. Imagine embracing each moment, each experience, each encounter as necessary, as perfect in its imperfection. This is not possible when we are trapped in the seriousness trap. Seriousness demands control, predictability, order, but life is wild, unpredictable, chaotic, and it is precisely in this dance between order and chaos that the possibility of an authentic and vibrant existence resides. Whoever fights monsters should see to it that in the process he does not become a monster. And when you look long into an abyss, the abyss also looks into you. This is the danger of seriousness. When we take life, our problems, our struggles too seriously, we become rigid, inflexible, brittle. We lose the ability to laugh at ourselves, and without realizing it, we transform ourselves into exactly the kind of person we would have despised in our freer, wilder youth. Have you noticed how children have a natural resilience? How they can fall, hurt themselves, cry, and minutes later, be laughing and playing again? This is not just the rapid physical recovery of youth. It's an instinctive wisdom that has not yet been corrupted by adult seriousness. The child still knows that life is a game, that pain is temporary, that the present moment is all that matters. We should consider every day lost on which we have not danced at least once. This is not just one of Nietzsche's most famous phrases. It's a call to action, a reminder that the body, not just the mind, is the vehicle through which we experience life. Dance, free, spontaneous, joyful movement, is a physical affirmation of life that transcends the prison of serious rationality. So what happens when we abandon seriousness? Do we become irresponsible, neglectful, superficial? No, that's the great confusion that keeps so many people trapped. The opposite of seriousness is not frivolity, it's playful depth. It's the ability to dive completely into the experience of life, without the distorting filter of anxiety, fear, expectation. It's the ability to see life as it is, not as we believe it should be. Nietzsche understood that true freedom is not in escaping the limitations of life, but in embracing them creatively. I wouldn't know what would be possible if it weren't necessary. The constraints, the challenges, the obstacles are not impediments to our freedom. They are the very field where freedom can manifest as creative expression. If you are wondering right now what your life would be like if you weren't carrying the weight of excessive seriousness, comment below. I'm ready to dance with Nietzsche. I want to know how many of you are willing to question the values that have been imposed on us and rediscover a more authentic and vibrant way of existing. Do you realize how our culture glorifies suffering? How we transform sacrifice into virtue, self-denial into nobility, seriousness into wisdom? Nietzsche saw in this what he called slave morality, a value system that emerges not from the strength and abundance of life, but from weakness and resentment. A system that says no to life in the name of abstract ideals. What is done out of love always takes place beyond good and evil. This subversive statement reveals the essence of Nietzsche's thought. Conventional morality, with its rigid rules, its absolute shoulds and should-nots, is a straitjacket that stifles the authentic expression of life. It's a manifestation of seriousness taken to the extreme. When we act out of love, not sentimental romantic love, but love as an affirmation of life, we transcend this restrictive morality and enter a realm of creative freedom. Have you ever had moments when everything seemed to flow naturally? When you were so completely absorbed in what you were doing that time seemed to disappear? Psychologists call this a flow state. Nietzsche would have recognized it as a moment of Dionysian affirmation of life, a moment when the division between subject and object, between you and the activity, dissolves. These moments are impossible when we are trapped in seriousness, when we are constantly monitoring, evaluating, judging our performance. The maturity of man is to have rediscovered the seriousness he possessed as a child at play. This is the true seriousness that Nietzsche values, not the heavy, oppressive seriousness of the anxious adult, but the total, absorbed, present seriousness of the child at play. The child does not play to achieve something, to develop, to learn skills. Although all this happens, she plays because playing is the natural expression of life. Nietzsche invites us to rediscover this capacity, to see life not as a task, a duty, a mission, but as an opportunity for the creative expression of what he called the will to power, not power over others, but power as the capacity to shape our own existence, to become artists of our lives. Without music, life would be a mistake. This famous statement by Nietzsche is not just an expression of his love for art. It's a profound insight into the nature of existence. Music, in its essence, has no purpose beyond itself. It serves no practical function. It doesn't solve problems. It doesn't produce material goods. And yet, without it, without this useless and non-serious element, life would lose much of its flavor, its depth, its beauty. The same goes for dance, for play, for laughter, for love. They are expressions of life that do not need to be justified by their utility. They are valuable in themselves. And it is exactly this quality that excessive seriousness makes us lose sight of. Seriousness tells us, you must make something of your life. You must be someone. You must leave your mark. You must have a purpose. And so we carry the weight of these expectations, these obligations, these shoulds, as if they were absolute truths, as if our life depended on them. But what if there was nothing we needed to do, nothing we needed to be, beyond what we already are? What if, as Nietzsche suggests, the value of life was not in its purpose, in its ultimate goal, but in the very experience of living? The secret for harvesting from existence the greatest fruitfulness and the greatest enjoyment is to live dangerously. The danger Nietzsche has in mind is not physical risk, although it may include it. It's the existential risk of abandoning comfortable certainties, safe conventions, established values, and embarking on the adventure of creating your own values, of living according to your own vision. This is the core of Nietzsche's philosophy, the idea that after the death of God, the collapse of the metaphysical foundations of traditional morality, we are called to become creators of values, not mere followers of established rules. And this creation, this authentic expression, is impossible when we are trapped in seriousness. Have you noticed how the most creative, most innovative people often have an element of play in their work? How they maintain a childlike curiosity, an openness to the unexpected, a willingness to experiment and fail. This is the spirit that Nietzsche is inviting us to cultivate. I would believe only in a God that knows how to dance. This provocative statement reveals the essence of Nietzsche's thought. A dancing God is not a serious, judgmental, distant God, but a divinity that celebrates life in all its complexity, that finds joy in movement, in rhythm, in bodily expression. This is the type of divinity that Nietzsche contrasts with the God of the Judeo-Christian tradition, which he saw as a denial of earthly life in the name of an imaginary beyond. The dancing God is Dionysian, ecstatic, intoxicated with life, immersed in the flow of existence, not separated from it by a moral distance. The question that Nietzsche poses to us is, can we ourselves become like dancing gods? Can we overcome the seriousness that imprisons us and rediscover the lightness that liberates us? There is always some madness in love, but there is also always some reason in madness. This is another facet of Nietzsche's critique of excessive seriousness, his distrust of absolute rationality, of logic as the only guide to life. He understood that there is a wisdom in the apparently irrational, in the emotional, in the intuitive, that serious, calculating reason cannot grasp. Love, in particular, defies our need for control, our search for certainties. It takes us to places we could not predict, connects us in ways we could not plan. It is the opposite of the serious, calculated approach to life. Have you noticed how seriousness generates fear? Fear of failing, fear of being rejected, fear of losing control. And how fear, in turn, intensifies seriousness? It's a vicious cycle. The more seriously we take something, the more afraid we are of losing or ruining it. And the more afraid we are, the more serious we become about it. Nietzsche offers us a way out of this cycle, the free spirit. The free spirit is one who thinks differently from what, on the basis of his origin, environment, his class and profession, or on the basis of the dominant views of the age, would have been expected of him. It is someone who has transcended the seriousness of conventions, of expectations, of traditions, and has found their own voice, their own path. This doesn't mean rejecting everything that came before. Nietzsche was not a nihilist, although he has often been misinterpreted that way. He didn't propose the destruction of all values, but the revaluation of all values, a revaluation that begins with the question, does this value affirm life or deny it? Does it emerge from strength or from weakness? Does it liberate us or imprison us? Become who you are. This Nietzschean imperative encapsulates his vision of authentic life. It's not about discovering a predetermined essence, but about continuously creating ourselves through our choices, our actions, our way of being in the world. It's a call to authenticity that can only be heeded when we abandon the seriousness that keeps us trapped in roles, fixed identities, external expectations. When Nietzsche talks about becoming who you are, he's talking about a process of self-development that integrates all aspects of our nature, the rational and the irrational, the conscious and the unconscious, the high and the low. He rejects the Platonic Christian division of the soul that elevates reason and moral consciousness above instincts, desires, the body. This rejection of the traditional hierarchy of human faculties is part of his broader critique of Western seriousness. The serious tradition has always valued the head over the heart, the soul over the body, the rational over the animal. Nietzsche sees in this a profound denial of life, an inability to accept and celebrate our complete nature. What does not kill me makes me stronger. This is perhaps Nietzsche's most well-known phrase, often quoted out of context, but seen in the light of his critique of seriousness, it gains a new meaning. The serious person fears suffering, difficulty, challenge. They try to protect themselves, build walls, avoid risks, but in doing so they also avoid growth, transformation, the opportunity to become stronger, more resilient, more complete. Nietzsche is not glorifying suffering for its own sake. He is recognizing that life inevitably includes suffering, and that our response to this suffering determines whether it weakens or strengthens us. Seriousness makes us see suffering as something wrong, unjust, to be avoided at all costs. The playful perspective allows us to see suffering as part of the game of life, a challenge to be faced, an opportunity for growth. Most thought is the reflection of secret feelings. This observation reveals Nietzsche's distrust of pure intellect, of disembodied reason. He understands that our most objective thoughts, our most impartial theories, our most rational beliefs, are often rationalizations of desires, fears, resentments that we do not consciously recognize. Intellectual seriousness tries to hide this truth. It pretends that our thoughts are pure products of reason, not contaminated by emotions, by bodily desires, by low instincts. But Nietzsche sees this pretense as a form of self-deception. He understands that we are embodied beings, that our thinking emerges from our bodily experience, that our ideas are expressions of our vitality, or lack thereof. Have you noticed how serious people often have difficulty changing their minds? How they cling to their beliefs, their theories, their ideologies as if their identity depended on them? This is because for the serious mindset, admitting an error, changing perspective, abandoning a long-held belief is seen as a defeat, a failure, a sign of weakness. Nietzsche offers us an alternative, perspectivism, the idea that there is no single absolute truth, but multiple perspectives, each revealing a different aspect of reality. This is not relativism, the notion that all perspectives are equally valid. It's the recognition that reality is too complex to be captured by a single perspective, a single system, a single theory. Nietzsche's perspectivism is deeply anti-serious. It frees us from the need to be right, to have all the answers, to defend our positions at all costs. It allows us to explore, experiment, change, grow. Whoever fights monsters should see to it that in the process he does not become a monster. And when you look long into an abyss, the abyss also looks into you. This warning from Nietzsche is particularly relevant to our discussion of seriousness. When we take our struggles, our problems, our enemies, real or imaginary, too seriously, we risk becoming what we fight against. We see this constantly in politics, in religion, in culture wars. People who begin by fighting against intolerance become intolerant. People who combat fanaticism become fanatical. People who oppose rigidity become rigid. Seriousness blinds us to this transformation. It makes us believe that the end justifies the means, that our cause is so important that any method is valid to defend it. Nietzsche warns us against this trap. He reminds us that the goal is not just to win the battle, but to preserve our integrity, our humanity, our ability to affirm life in all its complexity. There are no facts, only interpretations. This provocative statement challenges the basis of Western seriousness, the belief in objective truths, in absolute facts, in realities independent of our perspective. Nietzsche is not denying the existence of external reality. He is recognizing that our understanding of this reality is always mediated by our perspective, by our concepts, by our language, by our values. This doesn't mean that all interpretations are equally valid. Some are more useful, more fertile, more conducive to the affirmation of life than others. But it does mean that we cannot cling to any interpretation as if it were the final, absolute, definitive truth. This epistemic humility is antithetical to the dogmatic seriousness that characterizes much of Western thought. Have you noticed how the most serious people are often the least creative? How seriousness suffocates innovation, experimentation, exploration? This is because seriousness is invested in preserving the status quo, in maintaining existing structures, in defending established truths. It fears the new, the different, the unknown. Nietzsche, in contrast, celebrates the creative spirit, the impulse for novelty, the capacity to destroy in order to build something better. One must still have chaos in oneself to be able to give birth to a dancing star. Chaos here is not destructive disorder, but creative potential, unformatted energy, pure possibility. Seriousness tries to eliminate this chaos, organize it, domesticate it, but in doing so, it also eliminates the possibility of the genuinely new. Only thoughts that come by walking have value. This seemingly simple observation reveals something profound about Nietzsche's philosophy. He valued embodied thought, thought that emerges from bodily experience, from movement, from life, not abstract, disconnected thought that occurs only in the head. The Western philosophical tradition, with its characteristic seriousness, has always privileged pure, abstract, theoretical thought. Nietzsche rejects this tradition. He understands that our thinking is inseparable from our body, our environment, our way of life, and that a thought that cannot be lived, that cannot be embodied, has little real value. The advantage of a bad memory is that one enjoys several times the same good things for the first time. This is the kind of observation that shows Nietzsche's more playful, lighter side. He is celebrating the ability to experience the world with freshness, with novelty, with surprise. The serious person is so concerned with remembering, with categorizing, with analyzing, that they often miss the direct experience of the present moment. Have you noticed how the happiest moments of your life generally occur when you're not trying to be happy? When you're simply immersed in the experience, whatever it may be? Happiness, as Nietzsche understood, is not something we can pursue directly. It's a byproduct of a life lived with authenticity, with passion, with full acceptance of what is. Seriousness makes us pursue happiness as a goal, as something to be achieved through effort, discipline, sacrifice. But this very pursuit takes us away from what we're looking for. We're so focused on being happy tomorrow that we miss the opportunity to experience the joy that is available now. Man is a rope stretched between the animal and the Superman, a rope over an abyss. This is Nietzsche's vision of the human being as a transitional creature, not an end in itself. The Superman, Übermensch, is not a biologically superior being, but someone who has overcome the herd mentality, traditional values, oppressive seriousness, and created their own values, their own way of life. This overcoming is not easy. It involves facing the abyss, the void left by the death of God, by the loss of metaphysical certainties, of absolute values. The serious person avoids looking at this abyss. They cling to their beliefs, their routines, their identities as protection against the vertigo of freedom. The free spirit, in contrast, faces the abyss and finds in it not just terror, but also possibility, creativity, freedom. Don't trust any thought that doesn't come in the open air, in movement, a feast of the muscles too. Here again, Nietzsche is emphasizing the connection between body and mind, between thought and action. He distrusts purely abstract, theoretical thought, disconnected from bodily experience. The Western philosophical tradition, with its characteristic seriousness, has always favored pure intellect, abstract reason, disinterested contemplation. Nietzsche rejects this tradition. He understands that our thinking emerges from our bodily experience, from our active engagement with the world, from our way of life. The best weapon against an enemy is another enemy. This seemingly cynical observation reveals Nietzsche's understanding of the dynamics of power and conflict. He sees that we often define ourselves by opposition, by what we oppose, by our enemies. Seriousness intensifies this tendency. The more seriously we take our beliefs, our causes, our identities, the more intensely we demonize those who oppose them. We create a world divided into us and them, into good and bad, into right and wrong. And in this process, we lose the ability to see the complexity, the ambiguity, the shared humanity that transcends these divisions. Nietzsche invites us to overcome this mentality, not through an abstract ideal of universal love or indiscriminate tolerance, but through the recognition that conflict, opposition, difference are inevitable and potentially fertile parts of life. We don't need to take our enemies so seriously that we allow them to define who we are. The mind is like a parachute. It only works when it's open. Although this is not really a quote from Nietzsche, it captures his spirit well. The serious, dogmatic mind, closed in its certainties, is incapable of learning, of growing, of adapting. It sees any challenge to its beliefs as a threat to be resisted, not as an opportunity to expand its understanding. Nietzsche values the open, curious, flexible mind, willing to question its own assumptions, to explore new perspectives, to be surprised by the world. This openness is impossible when we are trapped in the seriousness that makes us cling to our beliefs. our identities, our values, as if our life depended on them. One must learn to love oneself with a wholesome and healthy love so that one can endure being with oneself. This profound insight reveals Nietzsche's understanding of the relationship between self-love and authenticity. The person who has not learned to love themselves is constantly seeking external validation, approval, acceptance. They are unable to be alone, to trust their own judgment, to follow their own path. Seriousness often emerges from insecurity, from a lack of self-love. We take life so seriously precisely because we don't trust our ability to handle it, to adapt to its changes, to find joy in its complexities. We try to control what cannot be controlled, predict what cannot be predicted, guarantee what cannot be guaranteed. Nietzsche invites us to abandon this futile quest for control and to develop a deeper trust in our own nature, in our own ability to flow with life, to dance with its uncertainties, to find joy even in its most challenging aspects. It is not strength, but the duration of great sentiments that makes great men. This observation reveals Nietzsche's understanding of the nature of true power, of true greatness. It is not the momentary intensity of passion, of conviction, of determination that matters, but its persistence over time, its capacity to shape an entire life. The serious person often confuses intensity with depth, strong emotion with lasting commitment. They oscillate between moments of extreme dedication and periods of exhaustion, of doubt, of disengagement. They do not understand that true strength is not in great explosions of energy, but in the ability to sustain a constant engagement, even if less dramatic. We artists, we concealers of naturalness, we moonstruck and godstruck, we sleepless, quiet, tireless wanderers. These words evoke the artistic spirit that Nietzsche valued so deeply. The artist does not see life as a problem to be solved, but as a material to be molded, an opportunity for creative expression. Art, for Nietzsche, is not an escape from reality, but a deeper form of engagement with it. The artist sees what is and, through their creative engagement, transforms it into something more, not by denial, by rejection, by escape, but by affirmation, by amplification, by transfiguration. This artistic attitude towards life is the antidote to the oppressive seriousness that Nietzsche diagnosed in his time and that continues to be prevalent in ours. It allows us to see life not as a solemn task, a heavy duty, a serious mission, but as a blank canvas, an empty score, an open stage, an opportunity for creative expression, for play, for dance. I am not a man, I am dynamite. This seemingly megalomaniacal declaration reveals Nietzsche's self-awareness of the explosive potential of his ideas. He understood that his critique of Western tradition, of Judeo-Christian values, of moral and metaphysical seriousness, was deeply disruptive, potentially revolutionary, and he was right. More than a century after his death, Nietzsche's ideas continue to challenge, to provoke, to inspire. They continue to offer an alternative to the oppressive seriousness he diagnosed in his time, and that continues to be prevalent in ours. They continue to remind us that life is not a problem to be solved, a task to be completed, a mission to be accomplished, but an opportunity for creative expression, for play, for dance. So, what does it really mean when Nietzsche suggests that those who take life too seriously are lost? It means that we are losing the very essence of life when we transform it into a problem, a task, a duty. It means that excessive seriousness is not a virtue, but a disease that robs us of the ability to experience life in all its fullness, its complexity, its beauty. It's not about abandoning all seriousness, about living in constant frivolity, about rejecting all commitment, all value, all responsibility. It's about finding a balance, a form of engagement that is neither too serious nor too superficial, a form that allows us to take life seriously enough to live it with depth, with meaning, with purpose, but not so seriously that we become rigid, inflexible, incapable of laughing at ourselves, of flowing with changes, of dancing with uncertainties. One must still have chaos in oneself to give birth to a dancing star. This is Nietzsche's final invitation, the invitation to embrace the chaos of life, to abandon the search for absolute control, for certainty, for security, and to discover the creative freedom that emerges when we allow life to be what it is, unpredictable, uncontrollable, magnificently chaotic. Those who take life too seriously are lost because they are trying to transform it into something it is not, and never will be, orderly, predictable, controllable. Those who abandon this futile quest and learn to dance with chaos, to flow with uncertainty, to celebrate ambiguity, discover a way of living that is both lighter and deeper, more playful and more meaningful. So the next time you catch yourself taking life too seriously, remember Nietzsche. Remember that you are not just a worker, a consumer, a citizen, a taxpayer, Insert your social role here. You are a unique and unrepeatable expression of life. You are an artist of your own existence. You are a dancing star born of chaos. And if this video helped you to see life a little less seriously, if it inspired you to question the values that have been imposed on us and rediscover a more authentic and vibrant way of existing, then subscribe to the channel. Share it with someone who may be carrying the unnecessary weight of excessive seriousness. And always remember, life is not a problem to be solved. It's a mystery to be lived, a dance to be danced, a music to be played, a work of art to be created, and you are the artist.